Hey guys, Ryan here with Night and Day Marine with another Lowrance Training Academy video. I am here with my Hook 7 reveal, and in this video I'm going to go over all of the Downscan features for this display. So let's go ahead and get started, and before I go through and explain everything on the screen, I just want to show you how to get here. So if we press our Pages button right up here, it pops up our screen, which is our Pages screen. And I can then just simply arrow down right here to Downscan and press enter, and it pops up our Downscan screen. Just as easy as that. So as you can see, we've got kind of a lot going on here. First thing is we have our overlays, which is our values right up here in the top left hand corner. Now they are generally going to default to our speed over ground, our depth, and our water temp. Now these can be changed to anything you want. You can adjust the size, you can move them around on the screen. There's a lot that you can actually do with them. And now I do kind of touch base and show you how to do a lot of that on my basics video for the hook reveal. So if you want to know how to do that, check out that video that I have there on my YouTube channel, Night and Day Marine. So now the next up is our range that we have right here. Now this is generally going to default to an auto range, which means that as we kind of, as you move around on the water and the depth changes, it's going to automatically adjust this scale for you. So that way you don't have to keep going through and adjusting this range every time it changes 5 or 10 feet. That would be kind of annoying to have to keep changing that every time. So the unit does it for you. But as you see, you have the scale here, which is kind of a quick reference. We can see how this little fish line right here is showing up, and we know that it's right at 8 feet. We can see how this one right here is at 14, and we can quickly see how the bottom is at around 18 feet. So that's really all about what that does. It's just kind of a nice little useful feature. All right, so now that we've kind of explained everything you're seeing on the screen there, I do want to point out, because you can see all of these kind of yellow and purple lines that are drawn on the screen here, those are actually caused from having my fish reveal turned on, which is a menu option for the Downscan, which I believe is actually a very useful feature. It allows us to be able to view our Downscan imaging and see our fish arches all on the same screen without having to do like a split screen and diminish down the size of what you're seeing. It just allows you to get like a full screen and see both at the same time. I find that it's actually really handy to set that feature on. So I really enjoy using it, so I recommend doing it for most of those users out there. So let's go ahead and get started on our menu options. So if we press our enter button right here, it's going to pop up our menus that we have. Now, generally what you're going to see when you first turn this unit on is you're going to get this auto mode. So all you're going to do is you're just going to press enter on it, and it'll switch it to custom. So that way we can go through and we can adjust all of these menu options we have right here. Okay, so now the first option we have up is our range. Like I mentioned before, the range is going to adjust the scale we have right here. Now it's going to always default to auto, which is what I recommend having it on. But if you want to be able to adjust that and set it to just a manual range, you can press enter on it. And then if you arrow up, you can highlight auto range down here at the bottom, press enter. And as you can see, it took that little green corner out and made it black right there. That means that that feature is now turned off. So now if we arrow back, we can now go through and we can manually select whatever scale or range that we want to be able to view. But if you're going to do that, generally you want to put your bottom right there at the bottom of your screen so you get the maximum viewable area for your depth. So let's see, we're in about 17 feet of water, so I like setting mine about 20, which puts the bottom right there. So like I said, we get the maximum viewable area of our screen. But I also recommend running on auto range personally. So I go back down here, I turn that feature on. So now that way, as the depth changes as I'm driving around in the water, so will the depth scale on my screen. So let's go ahead and let's go back. Now the next option is going to be our frequency. Now you have your 455 and you have your 800. Now the 455 is really good if the water is really murky or it's really deep because it's not as quite of a high resolution image. And so if the water is really crystal clear or it's not real deep, a lot of times the 800 will come in a little bit better because it is a higher frequency. You get a shorter peak to peak on that frequency as that sound wave moves back and forth. So it gives you a higher resolution image, a little bit clearer, but you know, it's a little bit more sparse. You don't get quite as much imaging as far as on the bottom here. You don't get as much, like, you know, just showing up. So on the Downscan, a lot of time I like running the 455, but in some cases, if there is a lot of structure on the bottom, sometimes the 800 might show up better. So I recommend playing with that and see what works best for you. So I'm going to set mine back to 455, and we're going to go back here. Now, as far as the 455 and 800, it does play a lot larger role on your side imaging. So we'll go over that when I do my side scan video. All right, so next one is going to be our contrast. Now, again, this is going to default to auto, but you can manually go through. So if I go onto here, I press enter so that it highlights this bar behind it. I can now arrow up or down to highlight auto contrast. As you can see, everything is green, which means that auto is turned on. So if I press enter, it takes that little green corner out. It turns this orange, which anytime you see orange, it means it's in manual mode. And now, if I arrow back up, I press enter, I can now manually adjust my contrast level. Now on structure scan or down scan, what the contrast does is the lower you go, the darker everything is going to be. The higher you go, the brighter everything is going to be. But it can kind of make it blur out, or, you know, by having too much white or brightness in it, or if you go too low, it'll make it too dark, so it makes it hard to see. So I recommend just generally running it on the default level. So I like just having mine on auto, so that way you get just kind of a nice, crisp, clear image all the time. So let's go ahead and go back. Now our next option is going to be advanced. So let's go ahead and click on advanced right here. And I might point out, as you can see, it has a kind of like a little arrow on it. Anytime you see a menu that has a little arrow kind of pointing to the right, that means that there are going to be sub options below it, just kind of generally applying to the unit itself. Now, like with these where you saw the little green lines on it, it meant that there are menus applying directly to this menu option itself. Whereas for advanced, they don't apply really to advanced. They're just menu options for the unit. So if we select advanced, you can now see that we have our surface clarity. So if I select that, I can go between off, low, medium, or high. Now, the higher you go, the more it's going to filter out anything between 0 and 5 feet of water. So you don't necessarily want to go too high with it if you don't have to, but if you are getting just a whole lot of clutter up in the area, kind of blocking your image, then I do recommend kind of increasing that a little bit. But like I said, just don't go too high with it if you don't have to, because it does filter out other objects in the water like fish. So I like setting mine to low, just kind of as a generalized setting for it, unless you need to, you know, go through and manually adjust it. So let's go ahead and go back. Go back. Now we have our restore mode default. Now what that's going to do is that'll just reset all of our settings back to the original factory defaults on just our downscan screen. Now you can do like a soft reset on the unit to do the same thing, but that will also reset the defaults on everything, not just this one page. So if you only want to reset just this one screen, you can go to right there, restore mode default, and it just reverts everything back. Now we also have our more options. We go to that. Our first choice here is our fish reveal. Now, like I mentioned before, that takes our sonar picture, just our regular sonar image, not the bottom or top or anything, but just right there in the water column, and overlays it on top of our downscan picture. So that way we get all of the nice structure imaging, and we also get our sonar picture just kind of right there, so we can see all of the fish real clearly while still being able to see the structure. Now, if I click that off, as you can see, it turns it off there, and now all of that sonar picture goes away. But as I turn it on, it does give us this extra menu option down here. Now we also have our range lines. Now when we select that, all it does is it just draws these little white lines across our screen, kind of give it a little bit more of an easier way to be able to see that, oh, well, what I'm seeing over here lines right up with 12 feet, or what I'm seeing lines up with 16 feet. That's all that really does. I feel like it kind of clutters up the screen a little too much, so I don't care for it, but there it is. Now the next one here is our palette. This is an important menu option, as you may want to go through and change the color of your screen that you're seeing. Some people are, you know, accustomed to various colors on their screen. It won't really affect the performance of the unit, but I kind of really like number 1. It kind of sets to that teal color. To me, it's kind of aesthetically pleasing, and it kind of really reminds me of just the color of the water. So let's go ahead and let's go back. And now we can go down to our fish reveal options right here. Now what this is going to do is this is going to allow us to adjust the options for our sonar. So now if you watched my sonar video, you saw how when I did my downscan overlay, it allowed me to adjust the downscan features on my sonar. Well, this one allows me to adjust my sonar features on my downscan. So by first off is we have our sensitivity, so where we can go through and we can just kind of manually go up and down with it if we want, which just kind of removes imaging off the screen. The lower we go, the higher we go, the more it adds imaging on. Now there's not an auto setting for this particular right here, so you do have to manually go through and adjust it. Usually around 89 or 90 is generally about a good place to have it. But if you are getting too much or too little, then I do recommend going in here and just kind of manually selecting it. But one thing I want to point out is that when you do this, only go like 1 or 2% at a time and let it sit for about 5 or 10 seconds to let it kind of gather its bearings and realign itself. You don't want to just go too far or too fast because you might miss, a particular percentage that works best for you. So I'm going to go back, set mine back up here to 89. Let's go back. Now we also have our color line. Now this one is just going to turn all of the imaging we have here more blue the further we go down. The higher we go up, it's going to turn things more yellow. Now I like having it just, again, where the default is. It gives me a nice mix of colors on the screen. And now one thing I want to point out, the different colors on here, what they indicate, the more blue something is, blue to black, the lighter or the softer the return it is that you're picking up with your sonar. Now the brighter the yellow it is, the harder the return is. So generally a more yellow object on here is going to indicate a larger fish, just because it's picking up a harder or larger air bladder or swim bladder inside of that fish itself. So anytime you see these little yellow spots, those are usually going to be the fish that you're looking for. So let's go ahead and go back here. Now we have our surface clarity, which, like it was just before, all it does is it affects the filter here at the top 5 feet of the water. The higher we go, the more it's going to filter out, but I don't recommend, again, going too high because it can filter out other objects further down if you go too high. So okay, let's go ahead and go back here. Now the last one is our color palette. Now, as I mentioned before, we have the palette for our downscan. Now this right here is the palette for our sonar. So if we go through and we select something else, you can see how it changes the colors of our fish arches that we're getting on our screen. So you can go through and set it to whatever it is that you like, whatever suits you the best. All right, so that's really about it as far as the downscan features are concerned. So thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for my side scan tutorial. I will have that up next. So I will see you all next time, and thank you guys for watching.
All right, well that's it for today, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please like it below and hit the subscribe button and the little bell. This will allow you to get notifications every time I release a new training video for your favorite Lowrance product. And don't forget, when you watch videos from Lowrance Training Academy, the difference is night and day. Alright, I'll see you all next time.